Welcome into the Russ Joy Show, and I welcome you in with a little bit of sadness in my heart and in my tum-tum, because not only did I watch USA-Canada last night, but I watched it again with my sons this morning, and I have this rule in the house: if you want to watch the game, we watch the game, win, lose, or draw. I don't tell them the result. We felt the elation. They got to watch the first period last night. We felt the elation of the second goal, the disappointment of the second goal from Canada, and then we moved on to overtime. And, well, Jordan Binnington's incredible. Absolutely incredible. But your team, your town, your team USA falls 3-2 in overtime in the Four Nations final on a day that was hockey-centric with the national media. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing amounts of coverage, which we'll probably get to here in a little bit. We're going to talk about the Four Nations final, whether it was a success or not. Now, again, we won't have the actual ratings on the tournament until probably Monday, which is when we'll do a little bit more of a post-mortem on the Four Nations. But injuries galore. That's the one thing that detractors really held against this tournament in general. Matthew Tkachuk he goes into that game hurt last night, and about 10 minutes left in the third period, they announced that he's not returning to the game. Looked like it's a groin or a hip flexor or something. We know that Charlie McAvoy might not play. It seems like he probably won't play the rest of the season for the Bruins. On one hand, you look at it, and you look at the Four Nations, and you say, this was a rousing success in terms of getting eyes on the product. This was a rousing success in terms of getting additional eyes on hockey. And again, the juxtaposition of the NBA All-Star Weekend from last weekend, with LeBron pulling out at the last second, with Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul trying to circumvent the rules in the skills competition. That versus USA-Canada, that was a great thing for hockey. There was a huge disappointment last night. I'm not talking about on the ice. This is something that happened off the ice. In fact, it's something that had to do with the broadcast partner of the Four Nations final. ESPN had the game, which is great, but like when USA-Canada popped a nice big number last Saturday, they were also on ABC. I flipped on ABC last night thinking, oh, it'll probably be there too. No, it was Extreme Makeover. And so I guess I have a very basic question here. What are we doing? Like, just conceptually, okay? If this Four Nations final is a big deal, and ESPN spent a lot of Thursday talking about this game, which we're going to get to in a little bit, ESPN and the national media as a whole, like FS1, everybody, they're all talking about this Four Nations final and about how exciting it is to have USA-Canada going head-to-head again. Why did they not flex this game into primetime on ABC? I don't get it. Like, it happens with other big games that you just push the programming back a week. Why did this game not appear on ABC? Like, when they ultimately reveal what the final numbers are for the final, it's going to be a somewhat underwhelming number relative to what it would have been with ABC. ABC is available in practically every home. It's available through every streaming provider. It's available through, like, free-to-watch TV channels as well. Like, ABC could bring you a nice big number to kind of put a big bow on the Four Nations, and instead you had ESPN and streaming, I guess, on ESPN+, but I was honestly kind of baffled, and I haven't seen anybody explain yet why they didn't get that scheduling. Like, was it because Disney made the calculation at some point that no matter who's in the final, it's not going to be worth supplanting the currently scheduled programming? Like, I don't know, but it was weird. I thought it was a genuinely strange call not to have the game on ABC. But we're going to get into the Four Nations. Speaking of Disney and ESPN, they tore up the rest of their contract with Major League Baseball, their broadcast rights deal. They're going to end it after the 2025 season. We're going to get to that because, in a weird way, I think both parties are going to benefit. But it's a very strange thing to see happen in these current times around media, and especially with an idea of, what ESPN's looking to do and how they're looking to kind of mitigate cord cutters. Like, we're going to get to that as well. Oh, and by the way, I mean, you probably saw this, but I put out an episode on Wednesday, and I did this whole big thing about how the Eagles should probably look to go outside of the organization, and I gave the reason why I think they should have done a Vic Fangio kind of hire. All those wonderful things. And then, I don't know, within like a few hours of the show ending, Kevin Patullo got named as the offensive coordinator, a guy whose name was brought up around the Super Bowl and after the Super Bowl. And I said, well, if you're going to do the internal hire, you better get at least one of the very well-liked vets on this team to come out and praise the move. And right on cue, A.J. Brown did. So we're going to get to that later on in the show as well. But before we get there, let's go out to the comments. I have to be honest, this week has been weird just because of President's Day. We did a Tuesday show, a Wednesday show, we got a Friday show. That's 3 shows in 4 days. That feels a lot more compacted than normal, right? Feels a lot more compacted. I got a whole bunch of stuff I got to do, and I didn't put out an It's Just Wrestling. I have that planned for today, but then I noticed that my laptop is kind of like dying again. So it looks like I got to make a trip back to the Apple store for the second time in the 5 years that I've had the thing. I've never had this many issues with an Apple product before. Maybe if I put this out into the universe, Apple's going to somehow hear it through my AirPods or my Apple Watch or my iPhone and know that I'm bringing that sucker in, and I really don't want to have to pay for another battery. I miss the days where you used to be able to just pop the battery off the bottom of the MacBook Pro. Now you can't. Now they have to like send it to Texas or something so they can unscrew the back, replace the battery, put another one in that's going to die in 2 years. Apparently. I don't know. Anyway, out to the comments we go. Chris Freed making it uncomfortable this morning. Episode 69 going to be a wet and wild one. Well, wet is everybody's face last night because there were tears. For Canada, it was tears of joy. For America, not so much. I also have to clear the air here with some of the things that I saw on Twitter last night. Chris Freed says, thoughts on ESPN quitting the MLB deal? Oh, we're gonna get there. Oh, it looks like Chris Freed has some thoughts on it. All right, we're gonna get to Chris Freed in a little bit. Eric Berkey says, U.S. crapped the bed last night. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say that they crapped the bed, but I certainly would go as far as to say, like, Binnington was incredible in overtime. The U.S. squandered some chances for sure. It's really, I mean, listen, Canada didn't have a few guys on Saturday. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that the U.S. was without Quinn Hughes, their best defenseman. They were without Charlie McAvoy, another very good defenseman, going up against a team with a ton of firepower in Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, etc. Like, that's a very talented Canadian team. And yes, it is the best of the best in the U.S., but going into a game, missing 2 guys on your blue line who are pretty important to what you do, that's going to make tough sledding, without a doubt. So that's where I'm at on that side of things. What was Austin Matthews doing on the final play where we see Connor McDavid get into the slot on his own, wide open, and get to deposit the biscuit into the basket? Like, I don't know. Looked like he was kind of pinching down into the corner to provide some support. But, like, you can't leave Connor McDavid wide open. And he did. And it wasn't like it was a super skilled shot. It was not quite point blank, but it was in a perfect spot. And you give arguably the best player in the world that kind of space and time, he's going to deposit that puck into the back of the net. Eric Berkey says ESPN has been showing less and less baseball for what they were paying for it. It wasn't worth it for them. We're going to get there in a little bit. I saw the ESPN and I got very excited. Ford says, Russ tells us when he's wrong, he says. Anyone remember? I do. And he said, hey, Sixers could still get the 4 seed because the East sucks. I do. I kept saying, nah, they suck out loud, and they still do. Ford, guess what? Sixers aren't going to win the 4 seed. I don't think the Sixers are making the playoffs. I also didn't expect Joel Embiid's knee to not be taken care of. And it sounds like after the last game or whatever, he said that there's some stuff that has to get done to his knee, which would seemingly support the quote that Ramona Shelbourne put out a few weeks ago, or something that was said on the telecast that, like, was it the Eagle or was it the Sixers-Bucks game? Huey Brown's last game, I think it was Ramona Shelbourne, said something to the effect of, like, he's going to need to get knee surgery for that, like, knee to actually get cleaned up and taken care of appropriately. Yeah. I don't know. It's a mess. It's honestly a disaster. The Sixers are, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what the end of this season is going to look like for them, but hopefully as bad as possible. All right? Hopefully. Greg Bondarenko checks in with a good morning all. Landros, too, says, what a great bright morning. Resident Canadian Landros, feeling great this morning. Let's see. I'm trying to see. Okay. Eric says, hockey showing, it's the only sport where it's always about the money, or it isn't always about the money. Yeah, there was a really cool thing that was going around yesterday, and it was PK Subban. I'm actually going to throw over to this because I was trying to figure out where a good time to put this up would be. But PK Subban was on First Take on Thursday. And like when you just talk about like culture, right? Like you talk about hockey culture versus basketball culture, NHL versus NBA heads up. I thought that PK Subban's take on it was like pretty damn accurate. And it's funny because he was on a panel with Stephen A. Smith, Chris Canty, and Brian Windhorst. And Brian Windhorst kind of gets asked the culture question, then he kind of deflects because Windhorst covers the NBA. He doesn't want to get himself in hot water. Doesn't want to say what we all kind of know, which is that it's a bunch of prima donnas. And so PK Subban like really just kind of calls it onto the carpet, and he went viral with this clip. And again, on the same day as the Four Nations final, you have somebody who doesn't look like your typical hockey player. If we're being fair here, if we're thinking stereotypical hockey player, PK Subban's not the guy that you think of. And him being on that panel and saying what we're about to listen to, I thought spoke volumes and also proved that PK Subban is arguably one of the best voices for hockey to the mainstream. Now, whether or not you like his analysis, whether or not you like him as a studio analyst, that can kind of live in its own little world. But when it comes to going on First Take and being engaging and being somebody who's going to draw the attention of the viewer, he did an incredible job. He certainly did better than having somebody who's milquetoast go on one of these shows and talk about team, with like a little accent and, the typical hockey response. I want to go over to PK Subban, though, because I thought this was maybe the best thing that came out before the game. This happened yesterday morning on First Take.
What are you playing for? Like, if you're really about it, if you're really about sports, then you're about two things: your teammates and the fans. And I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. When you do not show up to play, you're letting your teammates down. When you do not show up to play, you're letting the fans down.
This was, just for context, this was part of like a much larger overall discussion they were having. And yes, it was once again kind of like the juxtaposition of the NBA All-Star Weekend, LeBron pulling out late. Anthony Edwards didn't play, although he was hurt. They were trying to put that in context versus the fact that like a lot of the guys, I mean, both on the U.S. and Canada, there are guys who are playing through injuries for this Four Nations face-off, which is not the Olympics. It's not like a World Cup of hockey. It's not a Stanley Cup. Like, it's a small tournament that kind of took the place of the All-Star game. They're out there playing through injuries for this kind of thing versus what was happening in the NBA. All right, we'll go back to PK Subban.
That are paying you 40, 50, 60 million. I don't care if you're getting 300 million. Congratulations. But these people in here are paying $2,500 a ticket, $5,000, that are blue-collared, hard-working people. If you don't get your head wrapped around that, you shouldn't be in pro sports.
That's a good
because
point.
How are we going to grow? How do we expect you to be an example? Well, guess what? You don't want to be? You are one. You're on the biggest stage. You just said it. They make the most money. You're an example. You got to show up. You got to take that on. I'm sick.
So he's talking about all the money. There are times where I drop into First Take for a little bit and I get annoyed and then I leave. Yesterday's show was very, very good because they did compare, hockey salaries, obviously low. The audience for hockey, lower than basketball. But that basketball has kind of taken this hit in recent years. Call it the last decade if you want, that the TV ratings are going down, at least the last 2-3 years. The ratings have gone down. Player empowerment's gone up. There are people who believe that the product in the NBA has decreased significantly. I'd argue that skill in the NBA as a whole has gone up tremendously. But the mentality of the players and the mentality of player empowerment and the effort that gets put in and night out, especially by the best players in the league, that has gone down significantly. All right, back to PK.
I'm tired of making athletes greats, all-time greats, that aren't the best examples. Those are the people that we want our kids to follow, that we want athletes to follow. That helps us in our game. Stephen A., you want athletes to be educated on this and understand this. They got to understand the importance of showing up to the All-Star game and being on the court.
When you think about some of the worst things that came out of NBA All-Star Weekend, the LeBron thing is right up there with any of them. Okay. And like, there are always going to be LeBron stans who are going to say that the guy can do no wrong and he's never been embroiled in scandal and all this shit. And that's fine. But there was clearly an idea there that LeBron probably should have either played, suited up, should have suited up for the team picture, should have bailed on the All-Star game earlier to allow somebody to take his spot, something. Like, something went awry there, and it wasn't handled perfectly by LeBron. And he's far enough into his career. It was his 21st All-Star game. Like, at some point, you kind of have to do the right thing. And there's this thought out there that LeBron and some of the things that he's done over the years, and again, it comes back to player empowerment, that's some of the examples that he set, even going back to taking his talents to South Beach, right? And on national TV, shocking the world, going to Miami, that created the super team era. And that created the guys wanting to force their way out of teams to go build big threes across the league. LeBron might be a very nice guy. Like, I don't know a damn thing about LeBron. Never met the guy. Probably never will meet the guy, right? I appreciate the fact that he's never been embroiled in a major scandal that has dragged the league through the mud. And at the same time, you can argue that some of the things that have happened around his era and around his time have done damage that are going to take years to try to get public sentiment back on this side of the players. Anyway, we'll keep going.
And playing banged up sometimes. And playing injured maybe at times. Thank you. And participating, because here's the thing. Because you're making 100, 200, 300 million, you should be out there banged up. You should be. That's why we pay you, is to max out. We talk about greatness and it being the longevity of somebody's career. I don't care if you play 50 years. I want your best 10.
That's a very good point. I mean, within the LeBron context, is he treats his body like a temple. 22 years in the league now. Could he play another 5 years? He keeps setting records, but a lot of those records, I mean, in fairness, like, he's earned them. And at the same time, you look at the amount of games it took him to get to some of these records relative to like a Michael Jordan, and you go, a whole lot more games have been played. And in theory, he could set even a lot more records. I mean, you talk about like most points in NBA history. Like, if he plays another 5 years, like, it's going to be an unattainable goal because the guy would theoretically be able to play for 26, 27 seasons. That's insane. And yes, you can certainly love the fact or appreciate the fact or respect the fact that a guy kept his body in good enough shape that he could play that many years. But to PK Subban's point, if you are not playing dinged up, if you are load managing, I mean, he doesn't say load managing here, but the load management that's happened in the NBA is a legitimate issue. And again, you look at what the NHL players did in this Four Nations face-off, where like there's no real, there's no history around it, right? Again, it's not like it's the Olympics. It's not that, but they put on their national colors. They had the opportunity to represent their countries, and these guys played through injuries. Now, there will be negative ramifications for the teams that do pay them all the money in the NHL, and there could be significant impact. Like I mentioned, Charlie McAvoy might miss the rest of the season for Boston. I'm sure Bruins fans aren't thrilled that he got hurt in this tournament, and at the same time, the hockey world as a whole enjoyed the tournament. All right, we'll go back to PK.
I want you on the court dominating. I want you to go all out. I want Michael Jordan. I want Kobe. That's what I want in every sport. That's the guy that I follow. You're a different version than that, you don't get my respect. That's me, and that's my angle. That's who I am. But
so I thought that clip went viral. That was everywhere yesterday. I got to tell you, I agree with him. I genuinely do. And this is as somebody who loves hockey and basketball, who, I feel like I keep saying this all the time, who first fell in love with basketball. Like, I agree with him. And I don't care if you play 18 years. I'd rather see you give your all for 10 years. And then you go from there. But that was a hell of a clip. And so that was going around with the Four Nations, and that was just part of a much wider discussion in general around hockey. And I thought about it, I'm like, all right, why is ESPN especially talking about the Four Nations final as much as they are? Well, they had the game last night. But in fairness, like, I can't think of the last time that like First Take talked about hockey as much as it did, or that Get Up talked about hockey as much as it did. Or again, it wasn't just ESPN, but national media as a whole were talking about this tournament. Now, in fairness, the U.S. beating Canada on Saturday, I think, really helped aid that. And I think it really got a lot of eyeballs on the product and got a lot of people thinking about, like, all right, this tournament has no history, but boy, it would be cool to see the U.S. win. Imagine if you big brother Canada at its own sport. Now, I want to get back to this in a little bit, but I'm going to go over to some of the comments here because you have like Greg Bondarenko who says, seeing both Kachuk brothers playing on the same line was great to see. I agree. Let's see. Eric Berkey says, it's ESPN. They treat hockey as a fifth-tier sport, always have and always will. See, I disagree. And a big part of why I disagree with it is what we're about to talk about in a little bit with the contract, with the MLB contract that they're both mutually opting out of. Eric says he watched the Sportsnet broadcast from up in Canada. ESPN sucks. I thought McDonough did a good job on the call yesterday. That was totally fine. Jim Cochran says, as I watched the final last night, I kept thinking one thing. Is this what hockey's supposed to look like? Because that's not what it's looked like at the Wells Fargo Center for the last decade. I mean, what you were seeing last night, obviously, is the pinnacle of the sport. In a lot of ways, you're seeing best on best. And, like, that's a totally different level of hockey. But, yeah, it kind of, if nothing else, it's the atmosphere. The one thing that the Four Nations face-off did was give you playoff hockey in the middle of the NHL regular season. And I got to tell you, there was a take that I saw that drove me fucking crazy. Okay, like, I set out these days to just, like, try to be nice. But, like, when I see a dumb fucking take, like, it makes me so mad. And I don't know, maybe I just get mad because, like, this guy pissed me off once on Twitter and then he, like, tucked his tail between his legs and, like, didn't respond. He tried to, like, big brother me because he used to work for the Atlanta Thrashers at some point, I guess doing commentary or something. But, like, holy shit. So, where was it at? Yeah, here it is. So you get John Kincaid from 97.5 The Fanatic who goes, and he tweets this last night, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck he's getting at. But it made me so mad to see it. Because it's a genuinely stupid point. And I'm sure he has a way to try to spin it into being some kind of a, revolution, like an incredible take that's going to just take the world by storm. But John Kincaid last night goes on to Twitter and he says, the one troubling part of this NHL-sponsored experiment is that it is drawing far more energy and excitement than their own regular season product. To that I say, no shit. Why is that a problem? Why is that troubling? It's an international tournament. It is a tournament that has been built on low expectations and then exceeding them exponentially. It is a tournament that maybe the most diehard hockey fans were looking forward to, but it was a tournament that saw some of the best, most competitive games at this time of the year we've seen in a decade. And we got to see a USA-Canada game on Saturday that took people who were even like me, who initially weren't excited about the tournament, and said, oh yeah, we're here for this, 100%. No shit people got excited about this. No shit that there was more energy and excitement around it than regular season games. That shouldn't surprise anybody. It's actually grifting. This is a grifting take. This is a disingenuous take because this thing replaced the All-Star game, which would have been a relatively dead crowd because nobody cares about All-Star games, right? Right. Regular season games. You know why they talk about the difference between regular season hockey and playoff hockey? I don't know. A big chunk of it is the atmosphere. So again, no shit people cared more about the Four Nations. No shit that the hockey community as a whole really tapped into the energy from USA Canada on Saturday, and they got themselves hyped up again for it for Thursday night's final because it's an entire nation behind their team. No shit people were excited about it, more so than watching Red Wings Blue Jackets like on a random Thursday night. No shit. These are the kind of tweets that piss me off because they are disingenuous. And if he truly believes that, if he does, he's fucking clueless. And the fact that he worked for an NHL organization and would still like put this out there is absolutely befuddling. He could like yell and scream about it and, talk over it. I'm sure if we had it back and forth, you'd go, I've listened to his show sometimes. I know his thing. I know what he does. I also know why some people at that station, past and present, aren't always thrilled to spend time with him. But like, that is a grifting take. That just doesn't make any sense to me. It's so reductive. And it's also just like, it's a take that doesn't need to be put out because it's just not true, right? Like, anybody who watched the Four Nations felt the same thing. This had an entirely different feeling to it, and so much of it is tied to the fact that it's international teams, right? It's not the same thing as the NBA in-season tournament where you see the Sixers take on the Nets with a different colored court, and the stakes aren't really that much higher, and no one really does care about winning the in-season tournament except for maybe the players who get a bonus as they advance within the in-season tournament. I think up to $250,000 bonus, or it's the $300,000 bonus if you win the in-season tournament per player. Like, yeah, people are going to care more about seeing Team USA versus Team Canada than they would about seeing Flyers and Penguins at this point. That shouldn't shock anybody. I just saw that and it pissed me off last night. But, a lot of things from a lot of people these days piss me off on the old Twitter.com, which I guess maybe is where I'm going to go next. And I'm going to piss some of you off. I will tell you right away that I'm going to piss some of you off. Really quick, I'll go out to the comments. We can just have the people can all have their thoughts here. But JH rolls the eyes and says, Kincaid and Missinelli are joke hacks, always have been, always will be. Jim Cochran says Kincaid obviously isn't a fan of Champions League. I don't even know if he knows what Champions League is. Jamie Calvario says Kincaid is on Twitter way too much. It's such a bad look. And it's a 97.5 thing to some extent. That some of their hosts, not all of them, some of their hosts are on Twitter way too much, interact negatively with people way too much, act like they are the bastion of sports knowledge and sports fandom way too much. It clearly isn't translating into ratings, so I don't know why they do it, but that's their own thing. JH says they make all their money off hot diarrhea takes. T from the TO3 says, I thought John Kincaid was a hockey guy. Yeah. Apparently he was. Again, one time on Twitter. He was like, worked for the Thrashers. Great. How are the Thrashers doing now? Then he went and worked at a station in Atlanta that I remember somebody. I remember who it was. But somebody told me once when he was coming back to Philly, they were like, we worked at a station in Atlanta that didn't track the ratings. So make of that what you will. I was like, all right, interesting. I remember asking somebody, are both stations going to go wildly after John Kincaid? And the answer was no. One did. The other apparently did not. Anyway, we're going to keep going. Allison says, late but here. Hello, Allison. Landro says, NHL owes Donald Trump a big thank you. The hate for that man north of the border is legit. I can't even wear my MAGA hat out. I don't know if Landros is serious or not. But yeah, there was a lot of hate. There was legitimately a lot of hate going around yesterday on Twitter, which I do want to get to here. And like I said, it's probably going to piss some of you off, but like whatever. It's my show. You can be mad at me, but we can all kind of shake hands at the end because that's what the show is built on. Allison's driving the kids to school. Madeline and Isabella say hi. They're in the car on the way to school. Have a great day at school. Stay out of trouble. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Allison, did you pack a snack? Did you pack the lunch? Is that a hot lunch day? You got to go through the checklist. Orchestra. My kid has orchestra today. Had to send him out with a cello. Oh, just not a big fan of going off with a cello every day. Here we are. Ford says, what Kincaid can say is that the NHL doesn't get the same ratings. Sure, no shit. But again, the novelty of the product brings the ratings, and that isn't bad. I agree. Again, this is all about growing the game. There will be negative repercussions to the Four Nations, right? Injuries are the biggest negative ramifications that could happen, right? And if the Flyers were in a really good position, if they were in the midst of a really strong season, Travis Konechny, who was scratched last night, which I thought was actually a mistake, but whatever, they ended up winning, so good on Canada. But if Konechny or Sanheim had gotten hurt and you're sitting at like number 3 in the Eastern Conference and you lose Konechny or Sanheim for the rest of the year, Flyers fans are going to be pissed. And at the same time, I would be interested to see like how Flyers fandom would feel as a whole, because you say the guy went out and represented his country and he was part of this really awesome tournament. Do Flyers fans then have significant regret about those guys going on and playing in the tournament? Like, I'm not sure. I really don't know. I'm going to say something here that's going to piss some people off, and I apologize in advance because I love and care about so many people, but I have to tell you that there was some gutless bullshit that was like so hypocritical to me last night. And I know that no matter what I say, I can get labeled as being a woke left-tard, I was called not that long ago on Twitter. I could be told that I was a maggot, right? Maggot is the thing. For saying something about booing the anthem, like that being a bad look by the Canadians. So I somehow have maintained, I guess, my impartialness or my middle-of-the-road politics, right? Because I do try to look at everything fairly. I do try to look at things from like I think everybody's pretty damn crazy standpoint. But I got to tell you, I thought the hypocrisy yesterday on Twitter among people who were saying like, Donald Trump has ruined this tournament for me, and so I'm going to root for Canada. Never thought I'd root against my own Stars and Stripes, but Donald Trump has ruined this tournament, so I'm going to cheer for Canada. Can't believe this is going to happen, but, you know, I never thought... let me change it to another voice. I never thought that I would have to be forced to root against my country, but because Donald Trump is calling Justin Trudeau the 51st governor, I'm offended. And on behalf of all of my Canadian friends, I'm going to root for the Canadians. That's what I'm going to do. The hell with the Stars and Stripes. I'm going to root for Canada. Those people are fucking crazy. And by the way, I'm going to hit you with this. I thought that there was wonderful hypocrisy. There was dripping hypocrisy. And these people don't like to be called out, but I'll call them out. The people who, if you search their Twitter history, are the ones who whined and complained around like some Pride nights getting killed off or getting kind of put on the back burner. Those people who said hockey is for everyone, those people, right, who were offended or upset because there have been players or coaches or front office executives who haven't been like totally on board with Pride night, which you can feel about that whichever way you want. But there were a lot of people who kept saying hockey is for everyone, hockey is for everyone, hockey is for everyone. But apparently hockey's not for fans who don't agree with their political ideology. Those people, apparently hockey's not for them. It's not. So I hate to tell you, but if you are a Republican or somebody who likes Trump or somebody who, I don't know, thought it was okay that the sitting president of the country called the hockey team and talked to them on speakerphone, if you were offended, like if you thought, oh, that's actually kind of cool that a president called, the same way it would have been cool if Joe Biden or Barack Obama or George W. Bush or Bill Clinton, if any of them had called in on speakerphone and talked to the team, rational people would have been like, that's pretty cool. If they can't be there, cool that they called the team and they talked to the team. No, we can't have that. How could we have that in 2025? Nope, can't happen. Donald Trump called the team. Nope, can't root for America anymore. I'm actually going to, nope, turn my back on the country. I'm going to go root for Canada. I'm going to go root for Canada because I don't like the sitting president. Fuck off. Like, just shut the fuck up. Okay? You can't have it both ways. You can try to have it both ways. But if you are one of the people who is like railed for weeks, months, years, hockey is for everyone except people who don't agree with my politics, fuck off. That's where I'm at. You can be offended by that if you want. But remember, I have love in my heart for all of you. But it was so genuinely stupid. And I'm like going through Twitter yesterday because I'm on Twitter sometimes a little bit more than I probably should be. And I'm scrolling past these people yesterday, okay? I'm scrolling past them. Well, I enjoyed the Four Nations until Bill Guerin turned it into a MAGA, what the hell? It was like a MAGA cult event or whatever. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Seriously. I mean, like, I hear 51st state and I laugh. I work with people, some of whom think that Canada, like who work in Canada, some of whom think that Canada's going to get invaded. And some of whom are like, that's ridiculous. He's clearly trolling. Probably shouldn't do it as a sitting president, but he's clearly trolling, right? I'm not here to make excuses or to tell you that I agree or disagree with the rhetoric. But the fact that there are these people on Twitter yesterday, before this massive game, before this massive game on U.S. soil who are going out of their way to say, I don't like this guy, so I say, screw the U.S., I'm supporting Canada. Stop. Just stop. Holy shit. Like, at some point, I hope the world comes back to being somewhat rational. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I hope and I pray for the day that we finally get back to just a little bit of normalcy in this world. And you can agree or you can disagree, but you can respect each other. You shake hands, you move on, or you fist bump, or you say, I'm not making contact as, whatever. Like, just let go. It was just, I saw that and it made me so angry. And it shouldn't have. It really shouldn't have made me angry. But I was like, man, don't say hockey is for everyone and then say I'm actively rooting against my country because I don't like the fact that the American team was talked to by a sitting president. Like, what are we doing? Ridiculous. It's insane. Okay. I'm done. Yeah. I was looking to see there was a comment before that made me laugh. Oh, there it is. JH said spicy Russ. Yeah. I always try to set the qualifier. Remember, you can be mad at me if you want. You can be upset with me or offended by me if you want. But remember, I appreciate all of you who tune in. And we might not agree on everything. We might not agree on many things at all. But I'd still shake your hand and have a conversation because I try to be a normal, decent human being. But I thought that stuff last night was crazy. Jersey Steamer agrees with me. Thank you. Jim Cochran says, Russ Joy, hated across the entire political spectrum. You have to remember, I'm going to trigger Ford here. But, when you're a teacher, you have to, I have to be careful here. When you're a teacher, you have to do one of two things. Right now, I'm glad I'm not teaching. Because I remember what the climate was like when I left. And it was either you had to really toe the line or you were allowed to be very openly left. But if you were right-leaning, you had to keep your mouth shut for fear of blowback, we'll call it, or for fear of repercussions. Now, it of course depends on your clientele. It depends on the area that you teach in. I'm sure that there are, I do know. I have one friend who teaches in a very red county that is not my county, a very red county. And he's like, if you were left-leaning and you were vocal about that, you would face potential blowback. So it does kind of depend. It's a case by case. But I've somehow managed to continue pissing people off, even outside of it, because I try to be middle of the road, try to be fair. My Twitter mentions are always a wonderful place. I did the Trump impression Saturday, and I had people going, oh, crazy leftist media. Once again, I'm like, I did a Donald Trump impression. What are we doing? What? People need to just go outside and touch grass. You might have to move a little bit of snow out of the way. Just go outside and touch grass every once in a while. All right. There were questions going on, by the way, about the national anthems last night, which we're going to get to here in a second because there was something really bad that we have to talk about from that. Chris Freed says, haters going to hate. Best thing to do is say, I'm offended that they are offended and move on. Raymond Supper says, hockey fans can get back to booing Bettman. Brian Knowlton tries to remind me that life has been this way for at least 20 years. Hopefully it changes. I want to leave a better world for my children. And that better world is a little bit more acceptance of each other. Jersey Steamer, very much on board with me. I appreciate that. Allison says, Trump called the team. Wow, I didn't know that. Tells you how much I pay attention. He did. So part of what pissed people off was that earlier in the day, Trump put something out on, I guess, Truth Social, and I don't have Truth Social, but there's an account that puts out his Truth Social posts on Twitter. And he made a joke about how he was going to be at the governor's meeting, so he was going to miss the game, and then he invited Trudeau to be the 51st governor and join the meeting. And so that went about as well on Twitter as you can expect. Half of Twitter was like, yeah, and half of Twitter was like, no. Okay. Chris Freed also says that's not going to happen. The being rational is not going to happen. Let's see. Jamie asks, is there going to be a Snow the Goalie this week? Yes. We're going to do a show from the carnival on Sunday. We were going to try to get one in, I think, today. I don't even know if Ant's Power is back yet. We haven't talked about it in a couple of days. I know that, So apparently a tree fell in Ant's yard and only took out his power. And so while Pico was trying to restore power to like thousands of people, they're like, yeah, you're one house. So I don't even know if he has power, but we're going to be doing a show from the carnival, and I'm in the dunk tank at 11 a.m., so God help me. Hopefully people show up very late to Wells Fargo Center, and I don't end up having to go for a swim in the dunk tank. But I did request to go first because I'll tell you, I saw the water in that dunk tank later on in the day last year, and I almost puked. Like, you couldn't even really see through the water. And at that point, I was like, if I'm ever going to do the dunk tank, I got to go first. I don't mean to be a prima donna, but floating everyone else's filth, absolutely not. I am not here for that. Absolutely not. So I'll be there 11 a.m. at the carnival. Amy says, got to lay off the Twitter. It's meant to make you pissed off. I don't know. I enjoy it for the most part, and I like people. And, like, for the most part, I can kind of, like, shake off the haters. But it, like, I don't know. It's just weird. Dee says, meh, American Pride is dead. I get it. To each their own. Well, if you feel like American Pride is dead, you can feel like that, Dee. I know some people who would probably disagree, but that's okay. Ford goes, take Ford and Russ. Russ doesn't know shit about the Sixers. Fake news. And I do, but we can still shake hands when we see each other at Westmont Soccer this spring. Ford, if you approach me at Westmont Soccer, I don't know if we're going to shake hands. Depends on how you reacted in the most recent comment section. Andrew Fawcett is, in fact, here. Good morning, all. Thank goodness. That was the word I was looking for. Retribution. Yes, I couldn't find it before. Yes. Jersey says, a person's worth is not based off who they vote for. I agree with that. I have friends who are off the charts one way and off the charts the other, and I still love them equally. I might think that they're both equally crazy, but I still love them. Zach O was here with a good morning. JH says, hearing you talk about your Twitter mentions is insane. I tune in fairly regularly and legit don't know what your political beliefs are and couldn't care less. Doesn't matter. Thank you, JH. If I told you where my political leanings were, you'd be shocked. Shocked, I say. Maybe not. I don't know. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, Allison says that Anthony's power is back. Talked to him the other day. Would have been nice to know. We could have done a show yesterday, I guess. Or maybe today. Not doing it now because we got the Carnival show on Sunday. Oh, Anthony. Brian Knowlton asks, can we get a man on the street style from intern Andrew? The potato cam might make an appearance on Sunday, as we're doing. We have a bunch of guests coming on to that Snow the Goalie episode at the Carnival. We do. We have a bunch of people who are going to be jumping on. So we might send him out with potato cam. I don't know. Jim Cochran says, Russ, when are we going to talk about the union starting another campaign tomorrow? So much to be excited about, right? Maybe? You know, I will give the union credit. They made a trade yesterday, and they had a signing earlier in the week, Bruno, who set the club record. I mean, this is kind of sad, though. So the union set a club record on a transfer fee, $3 million for Bruno, who we can apparently talk about. We can talk about this Bruno. No. $3 million doesn't even crack the top 100 MLS transfer fees in the history of the league. But it's the highest one in Philadelphia Union history, which is insane, and once again proves that under Jay Sugarman, they have been a poverty franchise. Now, the trade they made yesterday, the player's name escapes me. Don't hate me for it. I'm going to probably bring somebody who covers the Union on next week. I'm starting to think about having some guests on in the next few weeks. I think I'll have somebody come on who covers the Union. Player is probably not as good as Jack McGlynn, but is a better fit stylistically and comes from St. Louis and had previously played under the Union's new coach. So if you're looking for that steady hand and a guy who understands what it's like to play under the manager and play within the system, it should be a good fit. And the fact that he's coming in so late, I don't know if he'll end up being in the starting 11. I don't know if he'll be on the bench, but presumably he's going to play a lot of minutes for this team, and he's going to be relied on as kind of like a coach on the field as they try to install this Red Bull-esque system with the Union. We'll probably talk about that next week. Zacho says, all I know about Russ's political beliefs is that he does a killer Trump. Some would say it's the best Trump impression. We're gonna keep going to the comments. We love the comments, don't we, folks? We love the comments. We think the comments are some of the best. And Zacho, I know a lot of Zachs. I've known many Zacks for a very long time, and I went to school with a Zach. His last name had a C in it. And I remember also there were other Zacks, and we speak about Zach C, and I can see a lot of comments remain in the comments section. We love comments, don't we? We love the comments. And I love to comment on a lot of things, and things are great. Thing 1 and thing 2. And 2 is the amount of goals the U.S. scored last night, but it wasn't as many as 3. You get Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid, he's left alone in the slot. Austin Matthews is gone, and Austin, of course, is a city in Texas. And we love Texas, don't we, folks? That's where Allison lives in Houston, where I went on an anniversary trip with my wife last summer. Believe me, and it was great. Fantastic. All right, we're back. We're back. Landros asks, I wonder if Anthony watched the game last night, or was it still a waste of time? I tweeted out last night that just based on the national reception, the conversation around the league, around the sport, and based on the play, if there are people out there who are still saying that the Four Nations was a failure, those people are either grifters or those people clearly have too much false bravado to accept the fact that they're wrong. Anybody who comes out of this tournament telling you it was a failure is being disingenuous. Flat out, case closed. Let's see. Let me see. There's some other stuff. What's this? Eric says, I got to take a Greyhound. I got to cut out to take the Greyhound out for his spa day. Wait a second. There's a spa day for a Greyhound? I'm so confused. So confused. Zacho says, we love the chat. Love the chat. All right. Anyway, I want to get to one other big thing, and then I have the quick point on the Eagles at the end. I mentioned ESPN at the top of the show because the Four Nations were face-off final was a big talking point of the day over on ESPN. But later in the day, the news broke. I think Awful Announcing was the one who broke the news. But then ESPN put out a statement, and Major League Baseball put out a statement. I thought this was shocking, and then I thought about the ramifications, and then I wasn't quite as surprised. But the word came out that Major League Baseball and ESPN have mutually agreed to opt out of their TV deal with one another. I believe it was going to run through 2028, and they're opting out early. So here's the statement from ESPN PR. We are grateful for our long-standing relationship with Major League Baseball and proud of how ESPN's coverage super serves fans. In making this decision, we applied the same discipline and fiscal responsibility that has built ESPN's industry-leading live events portfolio as we continue to grow our audience across linear, digital, and social platforms. As we have been throughout the process, we remain open to exploring new ways to serve MLB fans across our platforms beyond 2025. So that was ESPN's statement. And I have to be honest with you, in a weird way, I feel like this is a potential win-win for the league and for the network. It doesn't happen a lot. It's really rare that you find something like it. But I'm pretty sure that they're going to both benefit from getting out of this deal. Now, I'm going to pull up Major League Baseball's response or their separate statement, and then we'll kind of break this down a little bit because I think it's fair. Major League Baseball says, we have had a long and mutually beneficial partnership with ESPN that dates back to its first game in 1990. Unfortunately, in recent years, we have seen ESPN scale back their baseball coverage and invest in a way that is not consistent with the sport's appeal or performance on their platform. Given that MLB provides strong viewership, valuable demographics, and the exclusive right to cover unique events like the Home Run Derby, ESPN's demand to reduce rights fees is simply unacceptable. As a result, we have mutually agreed to terminate our agreement. Entering the 2025 season, MLB is enjoying tremendous momentum led by generational talent on the field and an entertaining brand of baseball due to rule changes which have improved the pace of play and action on the field. The results have generated increases in attendance, viewership, streaming, international growth, and overall fan engagement. The positive energy around the sport has also led to significant interest from both traditional media companies and streaming services who would like to obtain rights to MLB games, we will be exploring these opportunities for a new agreement which would start in the 2026 season following the conclusion of ESPN's agreement at the end of this year. The MLB-ESPN partnership has been an important and long-standing relationship that has helped both organizations achieve great success. As we get ready for the 36th season of Sunday Night Baseball, we look forward to a successful final year of MLB on ESPN in 2025. End of statement. Okay? JH got it. Carnival Barker. Good job. Yes. Here's what I think happened. Okay? Now, I have been known from time to time as a resident baseball hater. I am not a baseball hater. I don't like bad baseball. I like good baseball. The NBA has the rights to the NBA, or sorry, ESPN has the rights to the NBA. They have rights to the NHL. They had a very expensive Monday Night Football package. They brought in the likes of Troy Aikman and Joe Buck and Pat McAfee. They laid off some people. I don't think Major League Baseball fits what ESPN's doing anymore. I really don't. And I get that attendance may be up. Major League Baseball is going to argue that viewership is up. I just don't think it fits what ESPN's doing anymore. Now, is there a scenario here where like we could maybe see a reworked deal where ESPN does Sunday Night Baseball and that's it, right? Maybe there's a studio show, but that's it. Maybe. Like, do they view the value add of Sunday Night Baseball as being something that they can't live without? I don't know. I will tell you that the NHL could probably give you a little bit of insight into what happens when ESPN doesn't own the rights to your league. They will not actively talk about you nearly as much as you want them to. And if you don't think that ESPN can be petty and turn the MLB regular season into talking about the NFL nonstop, about NBA trade rumors around and plus the draft and everything else, you're sorely mistaken. Now, I don't expect that like ESPN is somehow, some way going to become like a big MLS supporter, especially since that entire league's package for the most part has moved off to Apple TV. But like, I don't think that the kind of content that ESPN needs to make aligns with what Major League Baseball is. And notice that they said linear because cord cutters are having a significant impact on cable and satellite subscribers. So you have that. Streaming, well, sure. But I would assume that if they're citing streaming, it means that on ESPN Plus and wherever Major League Baseball has been available, those numbers, something must be showing them the viewing audience just isn't as big as they want. Social is where MLB has struggled for a long time because they are very restrictive about you using their footage in any kind of content. I just don't think that it makes sense anymore for ESPN to be in the baseball business. And I could be wrong. I don't think I am, though. Some will argue, and I'm sure baseball purists will argue, that there's nothing quite like knowing that you can tune into ESPN every Sunday night. Baseball Tonight was always a really big thing. The changes that they've made to the broadcast, not exactly the best. It has kind of felt like ESPN sort of checked out of Major League Baseball. I would guess that they have done enough internal polling and enough internal data review to say, you know what, we could get a similar number running an NFL countdown show or running an NFL live show or talking about potential trade rumors in the NBA. We can get a similar audience at a much lower cost because you don't have to have the carriage fees. You don't have to have the rights to the league. They probably did the math and said we can do other programming and get the same result as what you could get through having Major League Baseball. And they ultimately decided it's not worth it. Now, again, they might come back and have a separate agreement. And maybe it's a Sunday Night Baseball only thing. I don't know. But then it becomes, where do you go for Major League Baseball? Because in fairness, if I were at Major League Baseball and I saw that my main partner in ESPN was neglecting my sport, I'd probably want to get out too. So where do they go? Could an Apple TV, which as I mentioned before has Major League Soccer, where they took all of Major League Soccer, like you used to be able to watch Union games on PHL 17. You now have to go over to Apple TV Plus to watch those games unless there's a nationally televised game, I think on FS1 and occasionally on Fox. But like the entire league, for the most part, has moved over to Apple TV Plus. Could we see a scenario where Major League Baseball says, you know what? Fine. We're going to go to an Apple TV Plus. We're going to go to a Netflix, which continues to get into more and more live sports. And whether you want to call it a sport or just entertainment or whatever, Monday Night Raw has been very successful over on Netflix. That's now a weekly show live. They had the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. They're trying to get into live sports. Could Netflix swoop in and try to pick something up? Could a Peacock try to swoop in and get live games? Could we, and by the way, I mentioned Apple TV. Like, they already have a deal in place with Apple TV, right? Because it drives some people nuts about having to try to find the Phillies game. Like, could they expand on that partnership? Entirely possible. Could an Amazon Prime, could Amazon look to swoop in and pick up some kind of an MLB package? It's entirely possible. There are so many options. And here's the negative. If you're a fan, the days of you being on your cable box and being able to just kind of, flip the channel, right? I think, was it John? It was either Jon Stewart or Bill Maher last week or the week before. They were complaining about the remote and about how, like, on cable, you used to be able to just hit the last button to go back to the prior channel. But now, if you're on YouTube TV, you kind of hit this one, you hit that one, you go to that sub menu, and then you click, and then you hope that it takes you to the game. All that kind of stuff. It is going to be expensive for baseball fans if you are now going to have multiple streaming services to watch your games. Now, I'm going to put a bold take out there, and you can mark this, you can bookmark it, you can circle it, you can highlight it, whatever. I don't think that a lot of these regional sports networks that continue to carry games are going to survive a lot longer. I don't. Remember, a lot of networks went under. Bally's took them on. Then FanDuel took a bunch of regional sports networks on. I just don't see a market where it makes sense and where the business sense makes sense to have those networks in place. I think that within the next 5 years, you're going to see a massive cratering of regional sports networks. And it wouldn't surprise me that if in the next 5 or 10 years, Major League Baseball consolidates the entire sport, just like Major League Soccer did, and they sell it to the highest bidder, and that you have to pay $400 a year to Amazon to get every game, right? So it's every single game, every single market, no blackouts, but that's how you're going to consume baseball. $400, you don't have to have a cable package, you just have to have the internet. There you go. $400, you get every Major League Baseball game. Does that appeal to you as a fan? I don't know. If you compare your cable bill or your cord-cutting bill and you're watching your YouTube TV price go up, and the only sport that you really care about is baseball, is $400 for the year a bad price? Probably not. But they're going to have to also try to weigh here what's good financial sense and what's stupid. I just don't know what they're going to do. But I do think I think Major League Baseball is going to go more streaming. I don't see a scenario where you get like TNT saying, yes, we're going to come in. Now, remember, TNT has the NHL. Again, sports or entertainment. They do have AEW that has a show on TNT and one on TBS. Could you see a scenario where TNT maybe tries to step up and say, we want to take over the ESPN package? That's going to help us kind of replace the NBA. Sure, it's not at the same time of year, but you're still trying to have a valuable sports league in your portfolio. Maybe. I don't see it, but maybe. If they do, I'd also expect that that's going to have some ramifications and could have a ripple effect when it comes to Max, their streaming platform. Like, maybe they're the dark horse. Maybe they're the ones to keep an eye on. But, like, other than that, I don't know. I do think that ultimately Major League Baseball is going to get more money and probably get better exposure on whatever streaming platform they go to. I do expect that. I think that they will ultimately feel like their sport is being treated better and with more respect and with more attention than what they were getting from ESPN. And I think ESPN is going to enjoy the savings that they get from not having to pay for it and for a product that they just don't feel like aligns with the vision of where their brand is going forward. That's where I'm at. Honestly, that is 100% where I'm at. Joshua Gaynor says, wouldn't shock me if they do that. NASCAR also has a portion of their season on Prime this year. I didn't know that. That's good context. I did not know that. I don't follow NASCAR, but like, it's good to know. I really just think that that's where we're going here, guys. Like, most of these leagues are going to end up either consolidating or encouraging their teams to take their TV packages to a streaming service. I could see Major League Baseball doing it. I think National Hockey League will do it at some point. They have good deals in place with ESPN and with Turner. But like, could I see teams that otherwise on regional sports networks in the NHL try to sell their packages to streaming services? I do. I think that's entirely in play. I'm usually right about these kind of things, about the media-related things. We'll see. I just don't see a scenario where, like, 10 years from now, you're still tuning into NBC Sports Philly. Or 10 years from now, you're tuning into SNY in New York. Yes, network will probably survive. But like all the other ones, I don't know. I don't know if NBC Sports Chicago is still a thing or if that like turned into a Bally's or into a FanDuel or whatever. But like, I just don't see those networks surviving. I really don't. Zach Go says, Flyers just need to go exclusive to Peacock so I can get their games without paying $80 a month for cable. I think it would actually be a pretty popular move if they did. I mean, it's under the general, much larger Comcast umbrella. But like if the Flyers, you're talking about a cascading effect. If the Flyers were to move off of Comcast NBC Sports Philly, you would really be hurting that channel, which is still under the umbrella. It's a totally different part of the league, but I don't know. Anyway, that's all that. Now, last thing I wanted to get to, and we're not really going to dive too much into it here, but like it is a thing. The Eagles, after I dropped the episode on Wednesday, they decided that they were going to hire their offensive coordinator, and they weren't going to do it in time for the show, but they were going to do it so that a lot of the short form clips that video guy Amadeo does were no longer going to be relevant. However, the Eagles have their guy. They have their offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, who was mentioned during the Super Bowl and after the Super Bowl, and it didn't get mixed reviews necessarily, but there weren't a lot of comments. Like there was one that Jalen Hurts had where he said it's a totally different thing. It's a totally different job. It's he's never had to do it before. And I said, all I need is for one or two of the well-trusted vets on the team to come out with like a ringing endorsement of the guy, and I will give them the benefit of the doubt. And it happened. A.J. Brown to NFL.com said the following about Kevin Patullo's promotion to offensive coordinator. He says, for our fans, they just need to understand that everything has to change. I know we just won, but it has to change. We have to get better. We have to do things different. But I truly feel like it's a great hire. He's already been involved in almost everything. Him, Kellen, and Nick basically called the plays already. That's interesting. So it's a great hire. He's already familiar with us. We have a great relationship, and he knows what we need to work on because he's been there and been there for a while. And like I said, he's already been part of all the situations and the conversations and everything. So I think it's a great hire. I wanted a Vic Fangio, older dude who's going to be here, not look for a head coaching job, and just continue to grow. The fact that one of your most impactful players on that offense came out with this, I would call this a ringing endorsement. The fact that one of your most impactful players came out with this endorsement of the offensive coordinator is enough for me to say, all right, cool. We'll see if it works. But I'd much rather have that kind of an endorsement from an A.J. Brown than have it be kind of like left out in the wind where we're going into the offseason saying, oh no, is this going to be 2 years ago all over again? That's where I'm at with that. I see a bunch of things here about the Flyers really quick. We'll be back on Saturday with a press row show for Flyers Oilers. It's an afternoon game, so I guess we're going to do 12:30 show tomorrow. Puck drop is at 1 o'clock. And then again, we have the show from the Carnival with a bunch of guests on Sunday. Zacho says Flyers. Oh, wait, no, that was the wrong one. It was this one. Sorry. Tony Louis says less than 2 weeks from the trade deadline for the Flyers, which is like our playoffs. The draft will be the Super Bowl for Flyers fans. I agree. 100% I agree. We're going to see what that ends up looking like, the trade deadline. I honestly have no idea. I hope that we see a bunch of guys moved. I'm not sure if it'll happen or not, but my hope is that it will. Let's see. We're going to go over here. Didi says, is Doc really the new safeties coach? I have not seen that. I don't believe that is true. Ford says, Russ said, go get an older guy who won't leave in a year. They sure didn't do that, but the continuity is good. I agree. Zacho says, lower the ceiling, lower the floor. Time to trade Risto and Lawton and make some trade deadline moves. Can't wait for the offseason and the draft. I agree. You know what? Let's end on a little bit of positivity. Okay? Happiness today. We had a nice time. I appreciate everybody who joined me live on YouTube, X, and Facebook. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, subscribe. And if you listen in podcast apps like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, do me a favor. Make sure you subscribe to the show. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating and a 5-star review. You can talk about the things that you love about the show or whatever, and I'll read it here on the show. So I will talk to many of you on Saturday, 12:30 for the Press Row Show. I'll talk to some of you on Sunday, either in person or online, for the Flyers Charities Carnival, where I'll be in the dunk tank at 11 a.m. I believe the show is also going to go live at either 10:30 or 11 a.m., so keep an eye out on the Snow the Goalie channel for that. I'll have an It's Just Wrestling later today, and Monday, 8:30 a.m., I'll be back with the Russ Joy Show. Until then, I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to all of you very,